The next time I went to Miss Havisham's, I was shown into a different room to wait. Several ladies and gentlemen, relations of hers, were there. They all turned and looked at me in disgust when I was the first to be called by Estella. As Estella was leading me along the dark passages, she stopped suddenly and put her face close to mine. "Look at me, boy. Am I pretty?" "Yes, I think you're very pretty." "Am I rude to you?" "Not as much as last time." She hit my face as hard as she could. "Now, you coarse little boy, what do you think of me?" "I won't tell you." "Why don't you cry again, you fool?" "Because I'll never cry for you again," I said, which was a very false promise, because I was crying inside at the time, and only I know how much I cried for her later. On our way upstairs, we met a gentleman coming down in the dark. He was a large, heavy man, with a very dark skin, sharp eyes, and a huge head, almost bald on the top. His hands smelt strongly of perfumed soap. I didn't know then how important he would be later on in my life. "Who's this?" he asked Estella, stopping to look at me. "A local boy. Miss Havisham sent for him," she replied. "Well, in my experience, most boys are bad," he said to me. "Behave yourself." He bit the side of his large finger as he frowned at me, and then continued downstairs. This time, Miss Havisham was in another room which I had not seen before. All the furniture was covered in dust. In the candlelight, I could see a long table, in the middle of which was a large yellow shape, with hundreds of insects feeding off it. "This," said Miss Havisham, pointing to the table, "is where they will put me when I'm dead. I lie on the table, and my relations can come and look at me." She put a bony hand on my shoulder, but I didn't want her to touch me. I was afraid she would die there and then. "And that," she added, pointing to the yellow shape, "that was my wedding cake. Mine." She looked all round the room angrily. "Come," she said suddenly, "help me walk round the room, and call Estella." I held her arm to support her as she walked. We were still going slowly and painfully round the room when Estella brought in the relations who had been waiting downstairs. They stood watching us at the door. I thought they blamed me for Miss Havisham's cold manner towards them. "Dear Miss Havisham," said one of the ladies lovingly, "how well you look." "I do not," replied Miss Havisham sharply. "I am yellow skin and bone." "How could Miss Havisham look well after all her suffering?" said a second lady quickly. "Impossible! What a silly idea!" "And how are you?" Miss Havisham asked this lady. As we were close to her then, I would have stopped, but Miss Havisham insisted on walking past. It seemed rather rude. "Not well at all," said this lady sadly. "I don't want to talk too much about my feelings, but, well, I often lie awake at night, thinking of you, dear Miss Havisham." "Well, don't," said Miss Havisham crossly, as we hurried past the little group again. "I'm afraid I can't stop myself. I often wish I were less sensitive and loving, but that's my character, and I have to live with it." And she started crying softly. "Look at Matthew now," she added through her tears. "Matthew never comes to see dear Miss Havisham, but I—" When she heard Matthew's name, Miss Havisham stopped walking and stood looking at the speaker, who suddenly became silent. Matthew will come in the end," said Miss Havisham firmly. "When I die and am laid on that table, you will stand around and look at me. You here, you there, you next to her, you two there. Now you know where to stand. And now go." The ladies and gentlemen went slowly out of the room, some protesting quietly that they had not seen enough of their dear relation. When they had all gone, Miss Havisham said to me, "This is my birthday, Pip. I don't allow anyone to speak of it. My relations always come on this day once a year. This day, long before you were born, was my wedding day. Perhaps I shall die on this day too. And when they lay me in my wedding dress on that table, I'll have my revenge on him." In the heavy air of that dark, dusty room, she was a ghostly figure in her yellow-white dress. There was a long silence. As usual, I left the house and walked towards the gate. But this time something strange happened. In the garden I met a pale young gentleman with fair hair. "Hello," he said. "Come and fight. This way." I was so surprised that I followed him without a word. "Wait a minute," he said, turning round quickly. "I must give you a reason for fighting. There it is." And he pulled my hair, then pushed his head hard into my stomach. I was ready to fight him after this, but he danced about so much that I couldn't get close to him. "Follow the laws of the game," he said, eagerly preparing himself for our fight. He seemed to know so much about fighting that I was very surprised when I knocked him down with my first hit, and then again with my second. He always got up immediately, and seemed very glad to be fighting in the correct manner. I admired him greatly for his bravery and his cheerfulness. Finally, he had to agree I had won, and we said goodbye. When I reached the gate, I found Estella waiting for me. She seemed very pleased about something. I wondered if she'd been watching our fight. Before I went out, she said, "Here. You can kiss me if you like." I kissed her cheek. It was true, I wanted to kiss her very much. But I felt that kiss was almost like a coin thrown to a poor common boy, and not worth anything.